Everyone, this is Rex Rocks here to talk about my favorite film slash the worst film ever made, possibly, called Avatar: A Waste of the Water. I already put out like an hour-long video about Avatar: The Waste of the Water, but I just can't let it go. And the reason is this. Avatar 1, of course, directed by James Cameron. Fantastic movie. I like the principles that they portray. I also like the fact that it's basically a story that we've heard multiple times when a more advanced culture invades a less advanced culture and they die. Now, how is that history? Easily. When the West from England came to North America, they became associates with the Aboriginal groups there. They did that not because they had good ideas and good morals. It was to make a conquest. The most important one is this. They didn't know this, but they had, I think it was called smallpox. And Aboriginals who'd never been in exposure to people with smallpox, they got very, very sick very, very quickly. And many died. And that's brutal. And on top of that, because they had things like human-made lethal weapons, shotguns, 22s, I don't know a lot about guns, but they did have bombs, weapons, and a lot of things like that. So they actually managed to deconstruct the entire eternity of what North America was going to be. So now it's all white people. And white people seem to like war, but this is the thing that's never brought up. Aboriginals have never had a central media that they worked out of. So Aboriginals were also fighting other Aboriginal groups. However, the West came, they had the guns, the bombs, gunpowder, they traded blankets, lots of the Aboriginals died, and that's what happened. And it's quite insane, but that is the truth. Now I'm gonna say this much. What happened to Aboriginals is exactly what the Mongols did to the East. Genghis Khan, or Genghis Khan, I don't care how you pronounce it. The fact of the matter is that, supposedly they say 10% of all humans have his DNA in them because he had a really insatiable desire for hot women and enjoying hot women. What's wrong with that? Nothing. But let me tell you what is wrong. The fact that he's talked about as being a person who was a leader and doing it well. Nope. Genghis Khan dominated basically the entire East. That's a huge thing that a man can do. It's a huge thing. So why is it that we don't call Genghis Khan, a racist? Because when he would take apart like Greece, and parts of Rome, he would keep the people who would be subservient and then put them in the front of his militia. That's what Genghis Khan did. He put these people who either had to die or die for him. And that's what he did. Nobody calls him a racist, even though he was, because he wanted to protect his own stable of humanity. And I bring this up because I'm a little bit bothered by the fact that, why is it that when the West from England conquered North America, now people like that are racist? Because they overtook the basic militia of North America. So people from the West came over to North America and they dominated it. And that seems to be go back and back and back in time. That's what always has happened. So I just don't like the fact that it's called racism when from the West doing exactly what's been going on for thousands of years, they get called being racist for eradicating Aboriginal. Now, if you actually look at Aboriginal groups, each one calls themselves a nation. There's nothing wrong with it. I agree. Each one of you is a nation. But if your nation is going to be getting plucked through the freaking stratosphere to nothing but not existing at all, why didn't the Aboriginals just get together and maybe make a union, just like the states have 50 states, just like Canada's got 10, provinces. Oh, and plus, of course, we have the Northwest Territories, and we got the Yukon as well. And then, of course, Alaska is just an outlier, but Alaska still manages to be part of the United States. So the issue that I have is that I don't like the fact that conquering indigenous population is race-based. No, it's actually not race-based. I went to high school, black kids from Pakistan, kids from India, people from Japan, Tokyo, kids from parts in Los Angeles. There's nothing wrong with all of this. Like, that is just what history is. It's called his story. That's why the person that wins is called the historian, because he knows that that's the dialogue that you have, that you tell down. And you tell down more, tell down more. It doesn't matter where you're from. There's been conquests that have occurred. Sometimes conquests tried and they were lost. They didn't win at all. And sometimes they do win. Do you think that the country of China didn't have fights against different people from different parts of China? China has like 1.7 billion people. It's the biggest country on planet Earth. Yeah, you know, I said it. Planet Earth. It's actually shocking that China has not already dominated everything. Then you get, let's say, Russia, that has a good, 220 million people, but they got a lot of science there too. So, I mean, it comes down to the fact that you can't call everything racism when, if we went back 2,000 years from right now, I would love to hear about who actually is dominating what. Because Rome and Greece were huge. Then Genghis Khan came in and he just decimated everything. That's why 10% of the human population has his DNA. Talk about a guy that knows how to win a war. Damn, very impressive. So my main issue is that I do not like hearing about conquering other nations is so far away from what we're doing right now. Let's discuss Ukraine. Ukraine, which is tiny as hell, is currently in a battle with Russia. Russia's huge. Ukraine's tiny. But Ukraine is fighting it. They are fighting it easily. And they're doing a very good job because, of course, they get a lot of money from United States taxpayers because the United States does not want Russia to get bigger and have more power. That's an absolute fact. So, Ukraine is doing well because of subsidized funding for their military in Ukraine. If it wasn't for the United States, Ukraine would be called Russia. People would say, what's a Ukraine? And a person would say, I don't know. Oh yeah, that's because Russia would have already ran that. Got ran through. They got ran through. Do you know what the term ran through means? Because if you don't, just disallow what I'm saying about being ran through. Because it's an actual term, more or less, for a sexual interaction between a person and then many others on the same person to a point where they can't say no because they got ran through. They got ran through. I really don't know what much else can be said except for the fact that the depictions of history of Aboriginals in Canada and in the United States and in Mexico, I don't understand how those people who were Aboriginals did not just go to Mexico. Mexico's a great place to live. From what I've heard, there's not a lot of racism unless you're a white Westerner. If you're a white Westerner, watch your fucking bank book and all the stuff you have because you just might get ran through in Mexico. So I don't get why Aboriginals would want to live in Ontario or Nova Scotia or Saskatchewan or Alberta because it's cold as fuck when it's cold. The only livable place in Canada is actually British Columbia. I would love to move there, but I can't because my whole network's set up right here. But I'll tell you this much though, if you don't want to get ran through, what you want to do is move to a place that's accepting of your culture. And Mexico was widely known to be very, very nice and kind and good to be with, to live, prosper, have a family. But there's one thing you gotta understand. If you're a white Westerner that moved to Mexico, you're gonna get ran through, gonna get ran through, gonna get ran through. That's all I know, but let's not cut up Westerners for taking up a country, a continent, when that's been going on forever. Nobody calls Genghis Khan a racist because he overtook white cultures for a very long time. Nobody says that. Nobody brings it up at all. And that's strictly because these motherfuckers get ran through, motherfucker got ran through. Pow, 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 pow. I am sick of white guilt because I don't blame white people, but I also don't blame the Mongols. But I also don't blame people in China who were raised in China 1,000 years ago killing other people from China. That's called conquering. How do you think anybody gets anything done? The only reason that things get done is because it's called conquest. It's a con, meaning wrong. It's a quest because it's a story. Has to happen. And if that's not going to happen with your group, it'll happen with the other group. Things like this. Pakistan. Nobody knows anything about Pakistan. Basically, in 1960, there was a group of, I can't remember, it was the Shiites. They wanted to split off from India. India's 1 billion people. Pakistan, maybe like 150 million people. But they broke away because they formed a coalition to make sure that they could get what they want. Pakistan is probably one of the most racist groups alive because they had to fight so much that they keep it up. And know what? You gotta respect that. You will not hear a whole lot of nonsense about what's the term? It's called being politically minded to make yourself look good. Nobody knows what that is in Pakistan because they left India, and that's some millions of people. And that's just a fact. Another fact, when you look at the United Kingdom and Wales, in Ireland, and the Welsh, all of them were killing each other for years and years and hundreds of years. So Scotland, Ireland, Welsh, England, all of them were fighting and killing each other with basically dull blades for thousands of years. And why were they doing this? Because they were conquering. But nobody says you're racist for conquering the Welsh. You're racist from conquering Ireland. You're racist from conquering Scotland. Nobody says that. Why? Well, if it's white people killing white people, nobody cares. But the second that you flip it, nobody cares. So that's basically my big, large, speech about what we're discussing with, oh boy, okay, but I'm not done. Do you know that China has been buying Africa, the continent, Africa? Chinese are very close to getting every special gate and port that goes to Africa, so China will continue to outsource everything from gold, from silver to electronics and all of this crazy stuff. That's exactly what is happening right now. China's gonna own Africa. Do you hear that in the media? No, you don't. And why is that? Because the media is basically controlled by white people with soft white guilt. So nobody's gonna tell China, stop dominating Africa and taking all of their resources and all of their mines and shipping it out. It's absolutely insane. China is going to be Africa, new Africa. Picture nice condos and apartments all over Nigeria or Ethiopia. The only part that's not going to get completely tooled is what? South Africa. Bingo. Why is South Africa going to be restrained from being involved in this highly hardcore breakdown of war? It's because South Africa, that's where the white people live. White people don't live in Ethiopia. They don't live in Nigeria. They live in South Africa, which is also quite dangerous in a way too. But that's just a fact. So does race make a difference? Of course it does, but it always has since Genghis Khan. That's just a fact. So look what happens in the future and think about China and Africa. Also look at how unfavorable is it for Western society to come to North America and basically eradicate Aboriginals. Of course it's not good. What part of history looks good? Even right now, we got the U.S. putting themselves in collapsed agreements where they know they're going to have people from the United States die in countries like the Ukraine just because they need to make sure that they can't lose that amount of freedoms and it's very important that they have control. Why is it that during the 1980s, that's a very loose way to say it, right? But the truth, though, is that it was Russia versus the United States. And who has the bomb? Who has the ticking time bomb? Who can set off these bombs? Well, what's fascinating is that you will notice that Russia never got hit by a nuke, by a bomb. It never happened. Instead, there was Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Japan. Japan's tiny. I still have tried to research and find out exactly why Japan was the place to put the nuke on. Moscow is what you do when you really want to win that war. But the US didn't want to win that war. Who knows why? I think I do know why. Fuck. I can't even stop. United States just wanted to look like they were powerful. So they nuked Japan. Because what the fuck is Japan gonna do? Nothing. Now Russia, though? They got a lot. Germany? They had a lot. So it's quite fascinating to see who starts wars and why wars are started. And I hate to say it, sadly enough, it's usually a political arrangement about money, power, and control. It's money, power, and control. That's what all wars are. That's why the US dropped 2 nukes, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and then the war stopped because the U.S. didn't actually really want to fight Russia, but they just wanted to prove to Russia that we some bad boys. We some bad boys, motherfucker. We some bad boys. Look, we just fucking nuked up fucking Japan. Japan's the size of a fucking Ritz cracker. Like, it's nothing. It does have a good economy, that's very true, but the real fact of the matter is that it's insane to think that if your real enemy is Russia or Germany, let's go drop nuclear bombs on Japan, and then the whole war was done. Not to say this in a bad way, but if I was the leader of Russia, and what happened was, you heard that they nuked Japan, I'd send everything I have at the United States ports. You know, places like New York port, Florida, Seattle, like, because now we had subs. So, like, submarines could actually do that whole thing. But no, the States instead nukes Japan, which had nothing. Absolutely fucking nothing. It's pathetic. Anyway, back to my main argument. I don't like hearing about a country that devastates another country is doing a bad thing. How do you think that we got here? How do you think that they got here? This is called war, and it's not pretty, and it's not nice. So, for all intensive purposes, that's called war. You can't just pick up one group and then the next group and say one's better than the other, because guess what? 10% of my DNA is probably Genghis Khan. That's just a fact. And I just wish people would stop putting race into every armament that exists in life. Sorry. The only groups that win are the ones that populate the most. So guess who I think is currently running the show? Globally. It's China. China's running everything. 1.8, 1.7 billion people? What would Canada do? Canada's got what, like 8 people? What would Mexico do? They're in political disorientation all of the times. It's just a freaking mess. Russia? Now Russia, I actually do believe they would go with the code and work it. I do believe Russia's a threat. India, have no idea why they're never discussed as a global threat. Hopefully they're doing good manufacturing. But the problem, though, is that they have a lot of poverty, too. Right now they're struggling with water, clean water, bathing. That sucks, but India's got to fix that up. If you could add 10 times to Pakistan, that would be a formidable army, because they are built on anger and a history where they distrust India. So they will always have strong borders. Very important. I'd like to hear what any of you have to say about different countries. Like, let's take France. Historically, France is viable and important, particularly with the arts, which is cool. I like it. But France, much like Germany, much like, who else is there? They're landlocked. So there's no major ports. The United States of America has massive ports. China has massive ports. India, I'm sure, has massive ports also. So it kind of comes down to, it's like, what are your material worth? And what can you get from it? The reason that geography is so important is because geography does run the show. You can't build on nothing. You basically need dirt that works. You need a viable political system that works out very well as well. You need clean water. Very important as well. All these things are so basic. But I do wonder where things are going when politics, it's almost staged. Just like I said. Why is Russia fighting for Ukraine? It's kind of a landlocked place. But why? Egos. It's all egos. People with big egos never shut that down. They can't stop talking. All they can do is keep it going around and around. So just to close off things real quick, I'm sick of hearing about how North America conquered Aboriginals, but they really didn't. They were at war, and unfortunately the Aboriginals at that time weren't ready for it. But do you think that every nation that the Mongols had was ready for war? Do you think that Greece was ready for war? Do you think that Italy was ready for war? Do you think that Scotland, Ireland, the Welsh were ready for war? No, they weren't. Nobody's ever ready for war. And the sad part is that you will only find that out when you're dying. But that is the nature of life. Conquering and building. You can't go back in time. Anyway, that's just my little diatribe on talking about war and the repercussions and the concussions and the prosperous aspects of conquering. It can't go two ways, it'll go one way. And that's just the fact. Anyway, this is Rex Rocks. Rex Rocks out. Please like, comment, and subscribe.